friends. Welcome to episode 355 of School Librarians United. I am your host, Amy Herman. This podcast is dedicated to the issues and challenges school librarians face every day. As a school librarian in my 19th year, I knew I wanted a podcast which addressed the nuts and bolts of running a successful library program. I don't claim to have the answers, but I hope that this is a platform to share resources and exchange ideas. Now is a perfect time to mention that all the ideas and opinions expressed in this podcast by myself, my interview guests, and listeners who reach out to the podcast are our own and do not reflect those of our school districts. When incorporating research, I always make sure to cite my sources. So whether you are a novice or a veteran school librarian, this podcast has something for you. I welcome you and all listeners to reach out with your feedback and episode suggestions. You can reach me on Facebook, on X, formerly known as Twitter. My handle is at LMS_United. On Threads and Instagram, you can find me at School Librarians United, and on Blue Sky at SLU Podcast, or the email address schoollibrariansunited@gmail.com. If you include your mailing address, I'll be sure to send you a podcast sticker. And now for today's episode, Staff Book Clubs, and my conversation with Katie Moose and Molly Dettmann. Friends, I'm so excited. We've got Double Trouble here, two returning school librarians for their third episodes. Let's get started with today's episode, Staff Book Clubs with Katie Moose and Molly Dettmann. Katie Moose, let's kick it off. Welcome back to the podcast.
Hi, Amy. I'm happy to be back.
So for listeners who might have not heard your first two episodes on the show, episode 308, Passive Programming, and episode 337, Library Inventory Best Practice, would you give us an idea of what you do every day, a little bit about your library, your schedule, and your students?
Sure. So my name's Katie Moose, and I am a high school librarian in North Carolina. I have a fairly large school. We usually hover between around 1,800 students at my high school. We are a big open campus, a lot like a college campus. We have 13 buildings. I am in my own building all by myself. We're located in sort of the Charlotte metro area outside of Charlotte. So we have both rural and suburban all around us. I have a huge group of staff as well. So we've got almost 100 staff members. So keep me very busy. I have a flexible schedule, and I am on a lot of committees and groups for our state organization. I'm National Board Certified, and I serve on the board of NC SLAMA, which is North Carolina School Library Media Association. Lots of words. I serve as our networking director. And so under networking, we have started a national board support group. So if you're getting your national boards, we are there helping other librarians facilitate that. We have Brew Crew, which is our casual PD that we offer twice a month for our librarians. We have a Friday night meeting and a Saturday morning meeting. So it's come as you are, bring your beverage of choice, and we sit, talk, share ideas, information. If you need to cry, laugh, sometimes we're doing all of it in that same span of time frame. And our book club, which is our Page Turner book club, also falls under our networking group. It was a brainchild of Christy Sartain, who is now one of our past presidents and has been on the show before. We have just started I think we have completed our third full year of our Page Turner book club. And Jennifer Long, who's been on the podcast, she hosts it. She does a fantastic job. And then at school, I'm busy doing anything and everything, tech support for the kids, tech support for the teachers. We've had kind of a crazy 2026 starting the school year because we missed almost 2 weeks of in-person school because of weather between snow and ice. It is very unlikely that we get this much in my area. Then I was back for one day, gone to a conference for 3 days, and then back, and we've got testing going on in the library right now. But I host our staff book club, so we'll talk about that later. Do a lot of passive programming with our kids. I'm our Battle of the Books coach, which is one of my favorite things that I get to do with my students. We are in the thick of Battle of the Book season, and I serve on our Battle of the Books committees for our state organization. So we are hosting our districts, regionals. My district, we're hosting the state regionals. We have a facility that we can use for free. And as we know, there are no budgets for most of us for things for library stuff. So free is for me, as my friend likes to say. So doing a lot of planning. We are putting together a book list for next year. And so it keeps me pretty busy. I've got a Canva PD I'm doing with our staff on Tuesday. So, always something.
Well, and I want to just tag because you reminded me of something that I saw in the news like this week, but I know this isn't news to you. But North Carolina in the 2024-2025 school year ranks the highest in the number of national board certified teachers in the country. Second is Florida, then Washington, South Carolina, and California. I only mention this because I know there are people listening who are in a position to make career changes, make moves, are looking for places that are very supportive in being an educator. And I've done a host of interviews with people from around the country for whom they are happy and feel supported, and they're really loving the things that the states do to support them as educators and school librarians. And, North Carolina comes up a lot, and right now you are number one in National Board Certified Teachers. Congratulations, you win.
We do get a pay increase with being national board certified. So it certainly is an impetus to get certified. But it's a great opportunity for sort of being reflective in your practice. And if you're someone who's already doing those above and beyond things, we just had a meeting last week and one of my fellow librarians. And so she was talking about what she was going to use as part of her components to submit. And I'm like, that is amazing. I was like, will you come do that for me? Because she's in elementary school and the research and the projects that she has and is doing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you are making me feel bad about what I'm doing because this is amazing. But yes, so, there's a cost, and I know sometimes that's a barrier for a lot of people, but there are grants and opportunities where you can get the upfront cost to pay for the components covered.
Right.
So then if your state does something where you can get that money back. So I'm lucky here in North Carolina, the year that you certify, they will go back and back pay you to the beginning of the school year now that you have certified. So not only is it you get that money as well, everyone's looking for their highest numbers for their last 4 years of retirement to help them. So I recommend it.
Thank you so much. I know I saw that in the news. I'm like, oh, I know people in North Carolina who are certified. That's fantastic. Molly Dettmann, welcome back to the podcast. You and I frequently connect. You're one of my people who probably hear from me on a regular basis. So I'm very grateful to have you as a friend. So friends who have not met you already, our first conversation, episode 174, Teacher of the Year, and episode 325, Committee Leadership. Thank you so much for coming back to the show.
Yeah, thanks so much, Amy. And it's so fun to get to do this with Katie, too. I am at Norman North High School in Norman, Oklahoma. It's a public high school. We have about 2,400 students. And we actually have 2 certified full-time librarians. So I'm one of 2, which will come into play. I'll talk about like the, iterations of our staff book club based on who I've been working with. We serve our students and teach classes every day. Like we're getting ready to do a big news literacy unit with our journalism classes. And then I've got some government classes, and we have an author visit coming up with the local Oklahoman author, and just lots of fun things we do every day. Our book orders are coming in, processing those and getting things going. This month, we're doing Black History Month read-in, where we've got like a big giant display with lots of different books. I got a grant to get some more books and display space, but it took a little while to come in. But now that it's like fully in, we've got classes participating in that and exposing themselves to more of our literature and poetry and picture books and all sorts of things celebrating Black history and present and future. And that's been really fun. So just trying to find new things to do with our students to really give them different experiences is kind of a big focus in our library. And like Katie was saying, it's really busy. Like sometimes I'm like, I don't even know what I did today because I don't think I sat down, and I'm hungry now and I'm going to eat and go to bed at 8:30.
Well, and I am like you, especially when you work at the high school and you're on a flexible schedule, you really are doing triage for anybody who walks in the door. Like you are triage. And so I have a Google Sheet and I simply keep a daily log of especially highlighting the teachers and the subjects that I support in real time. Because oftentimes those things really are, those may seem fleeting or just in passing conversation, but those can absolutely turn a teacher's plan from being a solo to a collaborative effort with their school librarian. And so, no, it's absolutely vital. And I'll be honest, as somebody who oftentimes has to itemize and document the things that I'm doing to have the largest impact on my district, we come under the microscope all the time, and you want to make sure that you can be able to justify why it is we exist. Before we dive into today's topic, I'm going to confess to everybody tuning in right now, we're going to do a little never have I ever. And I come at this topic of book clubs, period. Forget about the fact that today we're going to really hyper-focus on staff book clubs. And that's what these experts are bringing to the conversation, because I have nothing to contribute. I have friends, I have an audience, and I'm going to press record. But other than that, I honestly, my experience working in book clubs, very briefly, when I was a bride, I had just been married, and my sister-in-law invited me to her book club where we proceeded to pour wine, not read the book, and complain about our partners. And I was newly married, which meant I really didn't realize that that was a thing. Yeah, we're supposed to now complain about the people we married. And I had tried to read the book, but to be quite honest, I didn't like it at all. So I showed up anyway. And I got to be honest, I lasted about 3 months and then just dropped off, just sort of, I quiet quit. Before that was yes, I did a quiet quit of the book club. My sister-in-law thought it would be fun to do together. And I didn't go into any elaborate explanation, but nobody seemed to miss me, and that was fine. And there we go. Here endeth Amy's experience with book clubs. Do I participate in them no, I don't. I don't lead them. I don't organize them. So I'm so grateful that we have these experts today, because I bring nothing to the conversation. All right. So friends, I am so excited to bring these two together, because I'll be honest, we know each other because of the podcast. We know each other because Katie and Molly have both been on the show, but Katie and Molly have never met. First of all, kudos to Katie, because you inspired this episode. This episode exists because Katie texted me and said, "Hey, I've got an idea. How about?" So, Katie, would you give us an idea about how this sort of came together in the vision that you had for the show?
It's all my fault, Amy. Well, Amy, you actually gave me the vision for it, because the last time we talked on my last episode, and I was talking about our book clubs, my staff book club, and our book club that we have with NC SLAMA for all of our state librarians. And you said, I feel like we need to make an episode out of this, and we need Molly, because Molly does so many amazing things with her staff book club. And I was like, well, that would be amazing. Yes, because I think for us as librarians, it can be so hard. Most of us, Molly's so lucky. I am jealous that you have like a fellow librarian in your building. I cannot imagine that someone who actually gets what you're saying. But most of us are islands. So you're a duo who's an island. So it's nice having that opportunity to connect with people, finding your readers. That's been the best thing about when I've done activities with my staff, is it has helped me find my readers. And I think it has helped us connect more, and people who would not have connected ordinarily. Like I said, we have 13 buildings across my campus. So it's really hard to get everybody all together. So it's an opportunity for people in all different subject areas. Now we all know, oh, well, you like this, so I'll bring this up. And so it's been great to have those opportunities. But yeah, so when Amy and I last spoke, she mentioned this, and it had been sort of floating in the back of my mind. So I messaged her and said, hey, maybe we should actually make this happen. And here we are.
When I think about Molly and her book clubs, what comes to mind are these fantastic pictures. She takes it it's like a selfie of her book club in her space. And I'm like jealous because it's all these, smiling faces around a big table. And I was like, okay, that looks amazing because you've got all these amazing people. I don't see a glass of wine anywhere. And I strongly suspect that they are not complaining about their partners or their spouses. They've actually read the book. I mean, I want to feel like from that picture when Molly would post those, I was like, that looks like a real club, not like a pretend club where they just drink wine and complain. So, am I right, Molly? You don't serve wine at your book club, do you?
No, it's taken different forms though. Like our book club started with when I first started, my co-librarian at the time, Amanda Kordelsky, she's the one who started it. She's our current ASL president, and is now our director for our libraries in my school district. And the purpose was to have our staff and faculty read the books that our students were reading. And so like those first, and then COVID happened, and then she got another job. But like that was a really fun time. Teachers would come in and we'd have like some snacks and we'd talk about the books. It was also just kind of a little therapy session, a little bit. We'd be like, oh my gosh, this thing that happened. Like there was one particular book club where only one other teacher like could make it that day. But man, we had a good just sesh with her and, built that relationship. So it was a little mix of relationship building and books. And then when I got my next co-librarian, I kind of like passed that along, like, hey, do you want to lead this? And that one did turn into a like, let's go offsite book club. They were reading like The Love Hypothesis. And like, I know they had a great time, but that was the original purpose was not there anymore. So when I then got another co-librarian and she came on board, we did try to like kind of ease into things. Like she was straight out, like she was still in her MLIS program and everything. And I personally was like, I can't take on one more thing, but this will be your thing whenever you're ready, girl. I got you. And then that one after school book club kind of was starting to come back around. So I was like, well, I guess we really need to commit and do this. And now we are the Parents and Professionals book club. And yes, it is on school property, and it is not. We've got cookies and snacks and water.
No cocktails. Okay. Yes. No, that would be bad. Okay. All right, we're going to go into the details. I know, I'm excited. So let's go ahead, and we've got a sense of Molly, how long you've been doing this. So Katie, when it comes to coordinating a staff book club in your school, how long have you been doing this?
So we have actually just had our 1-year anniversary doing a staff book club. So it's been going really well. My predecessor at my library had hosted a book club for staff members. And so a lot of my teachers who participate now remembered that. And when I've done other staff sort of events and things like that, like a book basket exchange and other sort of reading themed activities, then some of my staff members were like, we should really have a book club again. I think that would be really great. And so I said, okay. So I sent out an email to the whole staff. Hey, we're thinking about doing a staff book club. Would you be interested? Asked about days and times and where to meet. And so we usually have at least 10 to 12 staff members who come to our book club. So, I've got my English teachers, as you would expect, but I've got science teachers, social studies teachers. I have had one of our APs. At the time, he was our only male member of our book club, but he brought great perspective and a lot of fun. So it was super awesome to have him. I've got art teachers. I've got one of our EC teachers. I've got our IB coordinator, who is now one of our assistant principals. So it's been really awesome to just give people an opportunity to like sit and chat. We meet at school. That was what worked for everybody. So we meet after school in the library. We have snacks. We talk. And, it's just been a lot of fun. So I will say I have stolen all of the ideas and modeled my book club after what we were doing with our state book club. So all my good ideas I absolutely stole from Jennifer and everything that she did with with our book club.
Well, and that makes me realize, STAP book clubs fundamentally are going to be differently organized, and it's going to be a different vibe than if we were doing this with our students. And we have one of our math teachers hosts a book club at my school. And I know this because the meeting actually is held in one of our spaces in our learning commons. We call it the fishbowl because it's all glassed in and it's fun. But it's a math teacher, and the book and the kids it's students, and the students are the ones who are generating the the choices and the selections. So, but doing this with the staff is got to be different. So I'd love to let's talk about, first of all, how often are your book clubs happening? It may seem obvious, but I think to those of us who are looking to do this starting from a place where there is no precedent. So let's talk about initiating a book club. What would you recommend? What has worked best for you when it comes
So
to
just like
how
Katie
often
mentioned,
does your
the
book
way
club
she
meet?
started
Yes,
hers,
Molly.
the same way with us, we use a Google form where we're just like, hey, who's interested? We have a question where it's like, what days after school would work for you? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then we also have an option where it's like, I can't probably meet, but I want to be informed. And then I think that's it. I think it's pretty simple. And so when we get those results back, then we kind of schedule the first one. So we do it typically once a month. We did have a bunch of weather and snow that kind of canceled our January. And so we just went ahead and just pushed it back to February. And then now we're back on our kind of monthly go around. But it's just once a month. And then my co-librarian this year, last year it was always like the third Monday or Tuesday or something like that. But now we've kind of rotated between a Monday and a Tuesday to try to get more people. Um, and that's kind of how it goes. And then we open it up to, so it was originally called the Faculty and Staff Book Club. So it was open up to anybody who worked in our school. So like we had, secretaries who would come, paraprofessionals, as well as teachers. And then this year we actually opened it up to parents. Now I will say we did have a moment of like, hmm, well, this ruined the vibe. No offense to parents, but we were just kind of like, But then we looked at the pros, which included having more buy-in from parents and building up those stakeholders and letting them see what we do. Because we weren't doing anything crazy. We weren't doing anything to keep a parent out. So we actually started with parents this year, which funny enough, though, the ones that have physically been able to come are all teachers at other schools. I think every single one of them. But we have a lot of like non-teacher parents who have signed up who could come at any moment, but it just hasn't happened yet.
Quick follow-up to that. Do you decide a year's worth of meetings at the beginning of the school year, or do you go on like a month-by-month basis? So you decide, you said like rotate between a Monday and a Tuesday, but do you post a calendar of meetings for the year, or is it we're going to go do a month at a time?
We do a month at a time just because there's so much that goes on that you don't want to schedule too far in advance and then like, oh crap, that's a choir concert that night and no one's going to come and we'd have to move it anyway. So that's why we do it. And my co-librarian's really sweet about making sure like she does kind of book off on her calendar when she would have them each month. But then before she actually makes it official, she'll confirm that I can come and that it kind of works for other people as well.
Excellent. Same question, Katie. How about you when it comes to scheduling? What has worked best in the situation that you in your book club at your school?
Yes. So initially, I sent out a Google form asking people, did you want the first, second, third, fourth week and what days? What worked better if we met off site later after school? So the people who responded, who were interested, felt better meeting right after school. Last year, we met on the last Thursday of every month, which worked out well because our state book club meets the third Saturday. So that way it gave me time so I wasn't trying to read one book and another book. This year we had to adjust because we have our monthly district PLC meetings with fellow librarians the last Thursday of every month. So we moved to Wednesdays. I go ahead and schedule the dates out for the whole year, just because it's me organizing it. So it makes it easier. Then it's a calendar invite that I can send out to everybody. They can add it to their calendar. And then sometimes I had to adjust. So, like, obviously in December, we didn't meet the last week of the month because we were all at home for Christmas break. So I adjust things like that. A lot of times on a Wednesday, we have early release days and it's staff development days. So sometimes I had to adjust for that. But we meet this year. We've been meeting on Wednesdays, last Wednesday. So in January, when we were stuck at home with the snow, we met virtually because that worked. And so several of my teachers were like, "This was so great. I've been trapped in the house. It was so nice to talk to another adult uh, other than my family." So I was really thrilled about that. And then it's open. Again, I stole this from Jennifer Long. I do a little monthly recap of our meetings. So I have a little design I've made in Canva, and I link on there the little icebreaker slideshow presentation, our little game that I did, some of our just sort of basic thoughts about what we talked about the book, remind everybody about what next month's book is. We always do, if we were casting the movie, who would we cast as the characters? So I include that. And then if we have some other recommendations, like other books by the same author, or if you liked this type of book, you might like these kind of books. So things like that. And I email that out to our whole staff and just say, here's a reminder. This is the recap from January's book. Don't forget, February's meeting is happening on this day. And then I'll do a little snack sign up. It was so funny. One of my teachers, when we were first starting, she said, "I was thinking it would be so fun if we had themed snacks." And my husband said, "Oh, that's so silly. Nobody's going to want to do that." And she emailed out to everyone. We were like, "Oh, we love it. That's so great." She said, "I knew y'all were my people. Like, this is how we operate." So a lot of times I'll try and come up with a little theme for the snacks. Sometimes I'm uninspired. So sometimes I do ask AI, like, "Hey, what would you suggest?" And sometimes it's just we do whatever. But then we do a little snack sign up. So everyone brings some snacks and things like that. And we talk about the book. So yes, I have to have it more structured and organized just to make sure I don't forget in my calendar and start to like pack up and go home and everyone shows up and they're like, "Isn't book club today?" And I'm like, "Yes, it is."
I want to talk about book selection because this is one of those things that for me, I would be absolutely lost. I wouldn't have any idea where we would even begin. As veterans of this organizing staff book clubs, I'd love to know what has worked for you when it comes to selecting the books that are going to be the focus. I would find that to be very overwhelming. I don't know. I'm here in high school library land, and my interest is in supporting the schools, our students, and our teachers. We do talk about this, but it would be very challenging and overwhelming for me to feel like I'm going to pick out the books that this club is going to read. So I'd love to get your feedback. Katie, let's start with you. How do you work out which books are going to be showcased in your book club meetings?
So our selections are completely decided by the group. That I leave it up to everyone. And so usually I have a Google form that just is like, "Hey, give some book suggestions." You can suggest one, you can suggest 10, however many you want to suggest. And so then from that group of suggestions from the people in the book club, then I put together another form, send that out, we vote and determine which books we want to use. For our state book club, we do like ranked choice voting. So whichever ones get, the most first place, and from there we do that. So I follow a similar format when I'm doing that with my teachers. The more people who rate it as their number one choice, then obviously it gets more points, and so on. Sometimes, so right now we've got, I said to my group, I said, "Do you want to go ahead?" I try and sort of have us put a list together a little bit ahead of time so that if people want to start reading ahead, or if it's something newer, get down on the holds list for Libby or Hoopla or anything like that, be on the lookout. We will send each other like, hey, it's a Kindle ebook today for $1.99. If you haven't gotten a chance yet, you can go pick it up. So we do that. So probably for this next time, I've got a big long list. I'm probably going to send it out and say, pick your top 10, and then we'll vote on the top 10 based on that. But it's totally selected by the teachers. We are picking adult books. We're not reading kids' books. So it's very much dependent upon the interests of my teachers, which is good. And so I try and throw in some things that are maybe different to suggest to help break up and give some more variety to what we're reading. I mean, I love a good murder book too, but it's hopeless to try and have us not reading just 5 murder mysteries. So
how about you, Molly? How has this worked for you and when you've run your clubs? Because I know over the years it's sort of you've the changing of the librarians who have run this. What has worked for you?
So we typically look for books that we have multiple copies of so that we can hand those out a little easier. So, like, we buy multiple copies of the books on our state award master list. And so typically we've actually read several, usually several of our books are those. There was like one book club where we picked a really new title and like nobody could get a copy of it unless they bought it. So they loved the book though. It was like, I think we really had a good discussion about it the month after when people could get a copy. But so we typically at least try to like pick something we have a couple copies of. We also usually try like right now our pick is one of the books from the author that's coming next month. Kind of like theme it a smidgen like we tried to read something by an Indigenous author for Native American Heritage Month, and it's kind of a mix of young adult books and adult nonfiction because we do have books like for that range in my high school library. So like we read By the Fire We Carry by Rebecca Nagel just because like that was such a good book. But we have a couple options, and then at that meeting we'll book talk them and then just see kind of by show of hands which typically people are like, I want to read all of them. This isn't fair. Like there was one month where we did kind of pick out a couple months in advance, like the 3 options we had. It was like, okay, well, we really like this one, so that can be next month. Can that one be the next month and that one be the next month? So that was really fun and nice to do. We do it a little bit more like in the moment where it's like, ooh, okay, what do we got around? What have we just read? Like my co-library and I also will be like, oh, we just read this. It was so good. I want to pitch this. Like I go back and forth. Like it would be nice to just like have it all out, and then that way people could get their copies and stuff. But it is fun to kind of organically, like after reading or a kid said something about a book, and then be a little more flexible in that choosing.
I had not expected your answers to be so different.
Well, there's beauty in both of these, I think. I will say it is a little like hard when you pick at the last minute though, because it's like, oh no. Because normally if you can like get a couple extra copies and have that together, but sometimes it's like, oh yeah, book club's next is tomorrow. Oops.
Well, and I think I know that my public library runs, they have book club bags. And I think that I mean, this is not unusual for public libraries to facilitate book clubs by creating it's a canvas bag, and it's got 10 or 12 copies of a book as well as discussion questions, because it's a great way to that kind of outreach is really fantastic. So I know that our public libraries, because their funds are incrementally more generous, are able to do something like that. But I love that the two of you come at this from very diametrically different positions, both of which make sense on so many levels. And I love that it gives our listeners an opportunity to create something that works entirely for them and the people that they're going to be meeting with. So that's fantastic, because when I looked at all these questions I have so many questions. And I didn't want to be like, is it a me too? Oh yeah, me too. That's what we do. And I was like, nope, that is absolutely not going to be the case. All right. So let's talk about discussions. We all have ideas, and I know that when it comes to sharing, adults get very excited about the things that they take great interest in. We're no different than our children, our students. We're irrespective of their age. They all want to chime in. But when we talk about the format by which this becomes a discussion, how organic is it? How do you have a system by which people throw questions out? So I'm curious to know how this conversation, how this book club is structured when you walk in and everybody is getting situated. How are the questions determined and the questions shared out? Yes, Molly.
So, like the rest of this book club planning, we just kind of start talking. We don't have anything pre planned in any way, shape, or form. But it usually starts with like so what do we think, y'all? As we're snacking and having a good time. I will always try to throw out the question, like, especially because all of the books are in our library and available to students. So I will always throw out the like, what do you think this is a good book for students to read, or would you recommend it to them? And those are pretty much the only two that we like for sure ask every meeting. But I will say our book club peeps are like it's after school, so like we kind of get right into it and then we wrap it up and then we call it a day. So some people will have certain questions or some things come up where it's just like, oh man, that one scene or like something really specific or we're all educators and like readers, so some people will have like real like literary analysis type questions, which is really fun. And then sometimes it's just like, oh, I hated that person, but it just comes up, and we just kind of do it till like it kind of starts to peter out, and then we pick our next ones.
I was going to say, does it, and I know that we'll sort of move into this, but at some point, the conversation devolves from book focus to talking shop about work. And I could see this happening. I know I would lack the discipline to keep us singularly focused on the book, especially when gathered with a group of, although if you've got an administrator in there, that might change. Yes.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right.
Well,
Yes, Molly.
started coming to ours, but not really. I think we're actually pretty good about like maybe at the very teeny tiny beginning, it's like, oh man, those ninth graders today were rough, right? And then the parents like, yeah, I got one, and then we have a couple comments, and then we go just kind of straight into book club. I think it's our opportunity to like not have to think about school and the hard parts of it. So while that first iteration was kind of a cathartic come together session, we're pretty all about the book club, at least now, which is kind of nice. I do like it. Like you can only vent so much sometimes.
Yeah, no, I see there has to be some discipline if you are inviting members of the public and your administrators to be there. This does alter the dynamic considerably. All right, how about you, Katie? Again, had not expected there'd be more than one way to do this, but apparently there is.
Well, and I will say that probably we come in and, we're putting out our snacks and things like that. And so there's definitely sort of some casual conversation as people are filling their plates and sitting down. And it's probably definitely more sometimes school focused and things like that as we're doing that. So I use my little sort of icebreaker game as kind of a good segue to kind of get us into our book discussion. And I usually pick something, we'll do something, related to what we read. We read Jeff Zentner's Colton Gentry's Third Act, which is a really great book. I highly recommend that. Jeff does a lot of YA books. This is technically an adult book, but there was really nothing that I wouldn't feel uncomfortable having in a high school library. So the main character is a country musician, and so there's a lot of country music themes. So I did country music questions. And obviously we're in North Carolina, so I have some big country music fans. So that kind of gave us a nice segue, and then we got to talking about the book. And sometimes I use like book club discussion questions if they're available for the book they're reading, just for me to have some ideas of things if we need to lead the discussion in a particular area or whatever. I have my laptop out as we're talking and I'm typing and keeping track of everybody's thoughts and what we're saying, because I'll put some of that reflected in the recap that I send out to the staff. And then a lot of times I just say, so what did you guys think of the book? And just like Molly said, we just kind of free flow with our conversation. I get all different kinds of responses. So it's funny, for our books that we are reading for spring semester, one of my English teachers, we were talking, she said, oh, I'm so excited. She's like, I've read all the books except one. She said, I got a notebook and made all these notes because I saw all these connections between all the different stories. So, and sometimes people are just like, yeah, I just read it. It was fun. I enjoyed it. So you get the breadth of experience of readers, and that's good. And I think that's great to, talk about that. But we do kind of free flow a lot more in our discussion. I'll usually try and end it as like a wrap up of asking who they think should star in the movie. And so we take some time thinking, and then everyone starts Googling, and we're looking at photos. We're like, oh yeah, oh, they'd be a good one. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And so just going off of what you said initially, having an icebreaker, would that be considered could you give us an example of an icebreaker that you would do to kick off your conversation about a book?
Sure. So for our January book, we read Wild Dark Shore. So I don't know if anybody has read that. I would put it in the cli-fi, so climate fiction, because the events of what's happening in the book are because of climate change. And it's about a family on a isolated island where they have a seed bank vault. Just like the global seed bank vault. And they have been keepers of this space, but they are going to have to eliminate this seed bank vault. And there have been scientists there. They've been having to determine what they are going to keep, because they can't keep everything out of the seed bank vault. And a woman washes up on shore. And it's about what happens to this family, this woman. You learn all about their interpersonal stories. So, and there's a lot of, stuff about animals, the different animal life and plant life. So that was kind of what I themed my icebreaker around. Pulled up different, weather facts, ocean facts, science facts, animal facts. And then as my friends joke in my state book club, that if there's something that needs to be researched, they're like, oh, Katie's already looked it up. Don't worry. She's going to give us the link for it. That's my trait, that I'm like, oh, I'm going to look in it. So I was like, oh, well, here's information about the seed vault. There's a 360-degree tour if you'd like to see the one in Norway. Here's more stuff about, penguins and seals, whales, and here's some other books that I would recommend. And if you like these climate fiction books. So that was all in that particular icebreaker. Usually I just kind of stick to a fun game. We read The Favorites last year. So if you're on an Olympics high and you haven't done that, I highly recommend The Favorites. It's very bingeable. I totally recommend the audiobook because it is a full cast narration. Johnny Weir. So if you have watched the Olympics, Johnny Weir and Tara Lipinski do the figure skating commentary, and Johnny Weir narrates one of the characters, and it just makes it all the more hilarious because he understands the world. So I did lots of facts about figure skating, that there is a difference between figure skating and ice dancing. I was not aware that there was a difference between figure skating and ice dancing. So stuff like that, anything that kind of relates to the story and what we're talking about. So as kind of a fun background.
Neat. All right. Context. Giving it context. Lots of context. All right. So I have to ask, because we are dealing with adults, and I think about my colleague who runs this book club with the students, and I have to imagine, as with any time where we're dealing with our young people, there is definitely going to be limits established about how much we share in a setting where we're with our students. But you're with grown adults, which means the rules really don't exist in terms of what kinds of, to what extent are you at all concerned about crossing professional barriers or boundaries? You're dealing with your colleagues and in some cases parents. But let's kick off this. What kinds of things are off limits or what kinds of boundaries do we establish in a situation where you're at school, but it is a social gathering and you're with professionals and colleagues, not with students.
Since we're at school, I think, I mean, some of us know each other a little bit more than others. I will say we have one parent who's a hoot. I just love her to death. When I met her, she is just right there with her opinions about the book, and she gets really into it too about looking at it from a how does this help my child navigate through life through stories. But she'll say it in really funny ways and use a little bit of language, but we're all mature adults here, so it's not a big deal. And also it gives us a sneak peek into why their kid is. I'm just like, you apple did not far fall from the tree. So like I will say that did happen this year with a parent, but we love her. She's great. And so I think everyone gets to be who they are, but we aren't meeting for very long. So like no one's getting into like super deep, dark secrets or crazy stuff. If we all wanted to be like friendly and have another after hours thing, I think that would be fine. So those boundaries are already just kind of like unspoken in there. I mean, sometimes we'll ask questions like I know in like when we read By the Fire We Carry, and that was about McGirt and like indigenous sovereignty rights and a lot of Oklahoma focuses there. I did like pose to the group like, is anyone native? Because like a lot of us are in Oklahoma. Nobody in book club except for one person was though. But then she shared a little bit of her experience because she felt comfortable, and so. Sometimes we'll post things like that that just kind of come up naturally based on what we're reading, but we keep it cool, but also real. We keep it real.
And I would say that there's never been a limit on what people shared. I am probably the newest member of the staff of those who attend book club. This is only my 4th year at my school. And most of my staff who are attending book club have worked there for longer than that, and some of them a long time. Many of them, even though they were teaching different disciplines, were in the same building in previous years, so they had a lot of interactions with each other. So it's just us teachers, and so it's always, if you feel comfortable, if there's something that like connects or relates to you, people have brought them up during book club. We read, I think it was when we read one of Rebecca Yaros's books, and there's some World War II connections and there's flashbacks in the story. So when we were talking in book club, and so in my icebreaker, I put pictures of my grandparents because they met during World War II. My grandfather was in the U.S. Army and my grandmother was in the British Navy. They met in St. Andrews in Scotland. And so that's sort of the special connection that I have with that. So I put some pictures in there of them, a picture at the officers club where they met and things like that. So, but, people have opened up about, divorce and parent loss because it's been things that we've touched on in the books and things like that. So, nothing's off limits, but I'm certainly not going to be like, well, I know you got divorced and so did this character. Do you want to talk about it? So it's whatever you feel comfortable sharing. Yeah.
I'm curious to know what kinds of challenges you've had to overcome to keep your book club running month after month after month, because I think that when it comes to organizing something, the responsibility now becomes yours to keep that type of interest and momentum sustained. So can you share with listeners what are some things that you have had to adjust or modify because this is an important meeting for the people in your book club?
Well, I'll go ahead and start. So I would say that I am running and organizing it, and it is totally, if you can come that month, great. If you can't come, that's okay too. Sometimes people have appointments, something comes up, things are going on. Totally understand that. We are looking at, and I posed to my book club, that this past December, that was our first December meeting. And so a lot of my teachers said, I really want to read the book and I'm planning to read it, but it was just too hard to get to the meeting. So we had a much smaller group than we normally do. So I'm posing to the group for our fall as we're looking at that. Would it be better if for our December meeting, instead of having a book that we're specifically going to talk about, we could do sort of a, Spotify wrapped year in review, talk about the books that we've read, both in book club and personally, because I've got a big group of readers who are reading a vast variety of stuff outside of what we're reading for book club. So does that feel maybe more manageable? And it's just like, we'll just come and have snacks and talk about books. And it's not a specific book. So we're looking at that to see if maybe, and I've got some who are like, no, I have plenty of time. And some are like, maybe that would be better. So we're going to see where we fall with that.
I really like this idea of like creating it's kind of like show and tell. It's show and tell at book club. And I think that would invite folks to join in a book focused conversation without the expectation of having read a book. That now it's show and tell. And maybe you could even crowdsource that. You put out a shared Google Doc and you can start to create some, Katie recommends, Molly recommends, and these are your books that you wouldn't necessarily read as a club, but books you would read because you find them personally interesting. Molly, how about you? How have you managed to keep this going?
We've done a couple of different months where we had like a theme, like it was like graphic novels or anything by this author. And that gave people a little bit more options, especially if it was hard to get, 15 copies of a book. So that's been kind of interesting and helpful. And we also are trying to, like, ours is a little bit of like trying to make them learn and grow. Like the graphic novel one, I will say, I think that was probably the least popular book club for our adults. A lot of our adults really love historical fiction or mystery thrillers, but they do appreciate they all said they appreciated trying one out. Like, I think, almost all of them were, like, not comic readers, or even though I'd be like, "Did you ever read the Sunday comics?" And they'd be like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Well, this is just a book format." So, but, they don't think about those things and, help dispel some of those stigmas around those kind of formats for our students, what they're reading. I love Katie's ideas. I'm just kind of jotting down everything Katie's been saying, though, because I do love the idea of just the last one being like "Hey, come hang out and let's just talk." Some of our people really do like the structure of like, "I want something new to read. I want something recommended." So the only, like, hiccup we've ever really had is when we transitioned from the adult after hours hangout book club back to the more structured faculty, staff, reading books from our school library focus. We lost a couple members who were like, "No, girl, I need my wine." And it's like, "That's okay. I get it. As long as you're with us in spirit, that's fine."
I would say I love this idea of having a theme, and I love this idea of introducing people to the graphic format. And I love this idea of promoting things that we have in our own collection. And so while I've never tried this, one that I would do in my space is I have an impressive collection of graphic adaptations of classics. And it's on a dedicated cart. And I love this because I use these and I make sure that I have graphic adaptations of many of the books that our students are reading in their ELA classes. And I do so for some obvious reasons, because I have students whose to read the original text would be a challenge for their reading level. We also have English language learners, and and some of them are manga, but mostly they are graphic adaptations of the classics. So a good example would be the Iliad and the Odyssey. This summer, July 17th, coincidentally my birthday, we have the Odyssey coming out, this amazing movie. And so I've been promoting both our graphic adaptation of the Iliad and the Odyssey because, and I will be very candid, while I have read parts of the Odyssey, I could certainly not claim to have read the entire thing. But I have promoted this to not just my students or teachers, but doing a graphic adaptation month where you could pick off of this cart, and it's graphic adaptations of contemporary classics and classics. And I think that would be sort of a fun way to introduce our book club to graphic novels, because they may see something there and say, "Oh, I know that story. Let's see how they do it in graphic format," especially because they could certainly knock one of those out in a much shorter time than reading what would be considered the original classic. So just throwing that out there for the good of the group.
Well, it's funny when you said Google Doc, Amy, because that was already something that was kind of like percolating in my mind after talking with someone. And I was like, maybe I give everybody a slide in a presentation and you can just drop some book covers of some of your favorite books for the year and things like that. So that's already in my mind, like, or maybe what you read this month and that you've enjoyed. And also talking about, did you read it or listen to it? Because I have a lot of readers and I have a lot of audiobook listeners and people who are doing both. So that's something we talk about a lot in our discussions. Like, did you read it or listen to it? And sometimes we're like, oh, the audiobook was terrible. You know, this was a great audiobook. We read one book and I said, I didn't even realize that there were different people talking. I said, all the voices sounded almost exactly the same to me. So I was like, this was money wasted on a full cast audio. I enjoyed the story, but this was money wasted on a full cast audio.
I will say, as somebody who gravitates, my immediate preferred way to consume things is through audio. And that has a lot to do with the fact that I spend a considerable amount of time in the car driving back and forth to work. But it is interesting because oftentimes I will not realize a book is a novel in verse until I look at the print copy. And so for the first time I will have read a book is on using the audio format, and then the book will arrive because I've ordered it or it's a new book. And I open it up, it's like, oh my gosh, it's a novel in verse. I had no idea based on listening to it. And no, I love that. But for me, being open to the idea that some of the people participating in your club will have listened to it as opposed to reading it with their eyes. They've been listening to it and reading it with their ears. They're oral learners, as I introduce my students that idea. So let's go ahead. Next one. Oh, can we do question number 12? All right. Is that okay with both of you? Question number 12. What would surprise learners about your staff book club? Is that fair? Okay. All right. So, I'm always looking to give our listeners an insight into what it's like to run, in this case, a book club in your school. So what would surprise listeners to learn about your staff book club? I don't want to put anybody on the spot. Or maybe, and again, that doesn't have to be a question we answer, but yes, Molly.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I don't have anything for that one because I've
Okay.
told y'all everything. There's no surprises.
Okay. How about you, Katie?
Yeah, the only thing I guess that sometimes surprises people, like when I have brought up my staff book club, when I do like PD and do presentations, that when I say that I've got English teachers, I've got social studies teachers, I've got science teachers, EC, 2 of our 3 art teachers, I've got foreign language teachers, that I'm really like hitting the gamut across my staff, and that I've had administrators, that I do have male members of my book club, that it's not just my female staff members. As I say a lot of times, I feel like a lot of my activities and things I enjoy and bring to the library may skew more girl focused. That we have, and that we have a big variety of readers and what they personally enjoy. That, sometimes they're like, I wouldn't have picked this up, but I really enjoyed it and really loved it. It's not what I usually read. I know Molly's saying that her staff didn't really like the graphic novel. and, I was thinking, I was like, I don't know how my group would feel if I like threw out a graphic novel. I have read graphic novels and I loved the Sunday comics as a kid, but I find them like a struggle to enjoy as much. I don't mind them, but I don't love them as much as my regular book.
So I am going to share, because I am reminded a conversation that happened, and I'm going to say a long time ago, but episode 186, Teaming Up with Athletes, with Jessica Fitzpatrick of Texas. So friends, I'm going to put a link in the show notes, but Jessica would run book clubs with her teams of her students, and do so with a recommendation of text, titles recommended by their coaches. And so really matching a book with a team, with a sport, and really sort of breaking through that sort of, some of those preconceptions as to what a book club, and meeting those readers where they were in their team rooms, where they do their debriefs, where they, and sort of meeting them after practice. But again, surprising, because you're working with those coaches and trying to bring in books which would help to inspire and provide a certain amount of conversation around the sport that they all are working in, and giving those students a better appreciation for the larger aspects of the sport that they're engaged in. And so I love that, but it really is sort of breaking through something that was otherwise a little more predictable, but something that I think is fun. And I'll include that link in the show notes, because I really do love this idea of trying to mix things up and introduce new ideas to new groups, and reach out in a way that brings more people into reading books and enjoying them. You've started to hint about this, but how has having a staff book club impacted your collegiality, your collaboration, your ability to then network and collaborate with your teachers during the rest of the school year?
I'll just throw out that it definitely just builds a bond with more teachers, especially maybe they're teachers we work with every now and then, but then we get to see them regularly and check in. Maybe there's something else that's going to come up. It's really nice that our administrators also are invited and come and kind of can see what the library's doing. It even got to the point, like, when we really first kicked this last bit, like this, current iteration off, and it's been going strong. Our principal, when it was recruitment time, she asked us to come up with a little flyer for what the library provides that they can give to people that are interviewing. And of course, faculty book club's the number one thing, because it's that's kind of a cool thing, that if you're looking for a place to kind of call your school home, we have school home kind of fun things, especially if you like to read. So that was really cool. And it's just another thing that we do that I think our school appreciates us for putting in the effort to have the opportunity for people, whether they can come or not.
I know. I think it has helped us, again, like Molly said, it helps you connect to the readers in your building to see who's enjoying it. My friend, who's one of our art teachers, she says she likes to describe herself as a baby reader, that she has really gotten back into reading rather recently as an adult, and so loves to hear what the veteran readers are saying when we come to book club, to hear what they're talking about. And it's just been a great opportunity for more of us to connect. It's been a great opportunity for me to connect with the staff. So now, we're texting each other things and messaging each other stuff. When I threw out, maybe we should do something different for December. So one of my teachers messaged, "Have you seen this? We should do this." And I don't know if you've seen the trend of bedazzling your books on social media. She said, "We should totally do this." Or, they'll text me a picture of this sweatshirt or hat. "We should all get a book club sweatshirt or hat. We should have merch that we wear to represent." And it's just opened us up to opportunities. We did a casual meetup over the summer that it was open if people could come to a bookstore that's fairly local to our school and not terribly far away from people. So only 2 of my members could come, but it was great because we were pulling up Goodreads and talking about what we'd read. And so we met in the little coffee shop next door and then went into the bookstore and browsed around. Now there is a bookshop that is opened in our town. They have sort of odd hours, so we're going to try and maybe hopefully make that happen again over summer. But it's just those opportunities that you wouldn't necessarily know or explore. And it's just been a great way for everybody to connect. So it's helped me that, I do different activities book related for the staff. And so the one thing they tell me, they're like, "I love that you bring all these book activities. I'm such a book nerd, and it's been so great to have these fun things that are just for me. It's not for work. It's not for my kids. It's just something for me." So, that's what I'm glad that people are getting out of it.
as librarians, so much of our personality comes out in what we do. So I'd love to know what it is you feel makes it possible for your group to be successful and continue to meet.
I think probably what has helped the most is just that this was born out of a request from my teachers that they said we should bring this back again. Those who had been part of the book club before really loved it and missed it. And so we're looking for that opportunity to connect. And they saw that I was willing to do stuff like this. So it's just been great to give us an opportunity to connect. We're so spread out in different buildings doing different things, but it gives everybody a chance to talk as readers and to hear each other's perspective. And I think, it's pretty low stakes. I always tell people, just like with our other book club, it's okay if you haven't read the book. If you just want to come and sit and hang out, if you haven't finished the book, that's okay. So if you need to leave early or come late because you don't want a spoiler, that's okay too. There's no pressure. If you miss a month, it's totally okay. We are here. I'm going to be here regardless. I hope everybody can show up, but if you can't, it's okay. And, we'll still have those opportunities to talk and discuss. We've got something else coming up the next month. So there's always a chance for us to talk about books.
I'd say that just the organization of it, lots of reminders so people remember to come, and just the variety of books and things that are in our collection, and with the focus of being better promoters of reading in our school. I mean, I've had teachers who have recommended the books they've read to their students, which, I mean, that's the whole point of just building this culture of reading and just sustaining it with these opportunities.
Friends, you're not going to want to miss all the show notes for this episode. The show notes are going to be a separate doc at the when you look at our show notes at the very. I'm just going to do a single link because I'll tell you right now, our librarians are incredibly generous in the resources that they've shared. I strongly encourage you to listen to Katie and Molly's previous appearances on the show because their expertise goes beyond book clubs, and I really, truly appreciate the contributions they've made to the show and incredibly generous in the resources that they've shared for today's conversation. Your social media is also listed in there. We don't need to list that all off. But Molly, thank you so much for being here with us today, and thank you so much for joining us. And Molly, if somebody wants to follow you, what is probably consistently the best place to find you? Because like I said, I see your posts of your book club, and that's one of the reasons why I knew I wanted to have you on today's show.
Yeah, so at Norman North Library on Instagram and Facebook are the best ways to check out what I'm doing in my library.
Excellent. Katie, thank you so much for joining us again. Best place to find you on social media if we'd like to see what you're doing.
Yes, you can definitely go on Blue Sky or Twitter. Molly is really great about posting on social media. I am not as good about posting. That is one of my goals for 2026. It's probably because I manage our school's social media, so I spend so much time doing that I don't get as much time for my personal. But you can also reach out to me with my NC Slamma email. So I'm but an email away. I always check it, so I always tell people, please reach out. I'm happy to help. So
thank you so much. I hope you all are navigating the last months of this school year, and spring will come eventually. It certainly hasn't gotten here soon enough, but here we go. We're heading into March. But thank you, and I appreciate your expertise as always.
bye, Amy.
Bye, Amy.
Friends, if you found this episode helpful, please share it out with your team, your PLN, and on social media. Be sure to follow on your favorite podcatcher so you'll never miss an episode. And if you really like listening today, consider leaving a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Reviews help others find us. If you're curious to know how often your state or country has been featured on the podcast, simply click on the link which can be found in our show notes. Search title, author, state, and country, and do a Command F search. I hope this is the year you consider being a guest on the show. Please visit our FAQs in every episode and you'll realize just how easy it is. We all have something to share. Make 2026 your time to shine. The topic of our next episode is Texas Freedom to Read Project and my conversation with Lainey Hawes. I hope you will tune in.